I am Nikola Tesla, an inventor and electrical engineer known for my revolutionary contributions to the development of alternating current, AC, electrical systems. My work laid the foundation for modern electricity distribution and numerous other technological advancements. Here are some facts about me. I left my own family. I was poor all my life. I was disgusted by physical contact. After all the merits, I was publicly mocked. All facts are truth. I am ashamed of some things, and some things almost destroyed me. However, it is an integral part of my life. It proves that famous people have the same problems and life challenges as everyone else. Now all about it in more detail. Section 1. I left my own family. Ah, the pages of my life, how they flutter in the winds of memory, carrying with them joys, sorrows, triumphs, and regrets. Allow me to speak of a shadow that has never left me, a shadow cast not by invention but by absence, by a choice I made long ago, and the loss that came before it. When I left my homeland, my beloved Serbia, I carried with me not only a suitcase of sketches and dreams but also the weight of a broken bond. My family, the root of all I was, all I ever hoped to be, I left them behind, chasing the spark of destiny that called me across oceans. I told myself it was for a greater purpose. A lie, perhaps. Or a half-truth I chose to believe. I was born in 1856, in a small village called Smiljan, in what was then the Austrian Empire. My father was a priest, and my mother, though not formally educated, was the source of much of my early curiosity and inspiration. As a child, I was captivated by the mysteries of the natural world. Electricity, the force that hums through the very air we breathe, fascinated me like nothing else. I would often wander the hills near our home, imagining that I could hear the whispers of the future, urging me towards something great. But there is one event, one tragedy, that would forever mark my life. When I was a boy of 15, my older brother, Dane, died in a tragic horse-riding accident. He was everything I was not, brave, strong, and destined for greatness. He was the one who seemed to have the world at his feet. And then, in an instant, he was gone. I remember the sound of my mother's wails echoing through the house, filling the silence with an unbearable weight. She was broken by the loss, and I, too, felt as though a part of me had been ripped away. But the village, they whispered, whispers that still haunt me to this day. They said, it was Nikola's fault. It was his fault. A question I could never answer, could it be true? Had I, in my boyish ignorance, caused my brother's death? I have never known. But that question has haunted me throughout my life. I left Smiljan not just to seek knowledge but to escape that haunting question, to run from the weight of my brother's absence, which I could never shake off. When I departed for America in 1884, my mother's eyes were filled with both pride and sorrow. Go, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Go and make something of yourself. Your brilliance belongs to the world. She was proud of me, but in her heart, I knew she feared what I would not admit, that I was running. Running from my past, running from a home where I could never escape the memory of my brother. I arrived in New York City with little more than a dream and a handful of money. But the spark of invention burned brightly within me, and I found a place to nurture that fire. I was drawn to the emerging field of electrical engineering, where I would soon make my mark. I had been educated in Europe, studying physics and engineering, but America, the land of opportunity, was where I would make my greatest contributions. It was here that I met Thomas Edison, a man who would become both my collaborator and my rival. My work with alternating current, AC, revolutionized the world. At the time, Edison promoted direct current, DC, as the future of electricity, but I believed that alternating current was the key to a more efficient and widespread electrical system. This belief led to what became known as the War of Currents. Edison, in his drive to protect his investments, launched a campaign to discredit AC, even going so far as to publicly electrocute animals to demonstrate its danger. But I pressed on, and in 1893, at the Chicago World's Fair, I showcased the power of AC by illuminating the entire fairground with alternating current. This event marked the triumph of AC over DC and solidified my place in history. But as my inventions and accomplishments grew, so too did the distance between me and my family. Letters became fewer, and the calls from my mother and friends grew more distant as I became consumed by my work. The work that brought light to the world also brought darkness into my life. I became estranged from those I loved. It was the pursuit of perfection, of the next great idea, that consumed me. I had created wireless transmission of energy, designed revolutionary electrical devices, and made contributions to the fields of radio, electromagnetism, and mechanical engineering. Yet I found myself alone, with few true friends, and even fewer who understood the magnitude of my work. I often think of those early days in New York, when I lived in a small, shabby apartment with barely enough money to eat, yet with a mind full of ideas. Those days were filled with moments of triumph, but also moments of crushing isolation. It was a loneliness that grew with my success. As my inventions brought me fame, my personal life suffered. I had few lasting relationships. I never married, though I was said to have been in love with a woman named Katherine Johnson. But love, for me, was always a distraction from my work. I had no time for it, no room for it in the grand vision I was building. I gave everything to my work, everything. In 1891, I patented the induction motor, a key component in the development of the electrical grid, which would change the course of history. But I could not stop. I was obsessed with ideas, with the vision of a world powered by wireless energy, a world where electrical power could be transmitted across vast distances without wires. I spent years of my life working toward this goal, even building the famous Wardenclyffe Tower on Long Island. But the tower, like so many of my grand ideas, would ultimately be left unfinished. Financial troubles, lack of support, and the relentless competition from men like Edison and George Westinghouse eventually led to its abandonment. My work brought me little financial reward. Despite my contributions to science and industry, I died in relative obscurity and poverty in 1943, at the age of 86. My obituary did not mention my greatest achievements. Instead, it focused on my eccentricities, my failures, and my seemingly unhinged obsession with transmitting wireless power. But in the years since my death, the world has come to recognize my contributions to modern technology. The electric power systems that power our homes, the radio waves that carry information across the globe, the motors that drive industries, they are all the product of my vision. As I look back on my life, I wonder if it was worth it. All the inventions, all the accolades, all the fame, what does it matter when I was a man without a family, a man without those I loved? Genius, I have come to understand, is no substitute for love and connection. The brightest light cannot chase away every shadow. Dane, my brother, my shadow, do you see me now? Do you forgive me? I hope that you do, for I would trade all the inventions, all the accolades, for one moment to look into your eyes again, to hear your laughter, to know that I am absolved. But life marches on, indifferent to regret, and so I build. I dream. I strive. For in creation, I find my only solace. And yet, the boy who lost his brother still stands within me, waiting for a peace that will not come. Ah, my friends, let this be my lesson to you. Genius is no substitute for love, and the brightest light cannot chase away every shadow. Section 2, I was poor all my life. Ah, the irony of my life, a man who sought to illuminate the world, yet spent his days shrouded in shadows. They call me a visionary, a pioneer of the future. But let me tell you, friends, vision alone is no shield against the gnawing pangs of hunger or the heavy weight of unpaid debts. My hands, these hands that tamed the currents of nature, that conjured lightning from the ether, what little they have held in gold. My inventions, my gifts to mankind, have turned the wheels of progress, yet left me destitute. A cruel jest, is it not? To have the mind of a creator but the fortune of a beggar. Ah, Edison, that first bitter taste of betrayal. He promised me $50,000, a fortune, enough to build dreams upon dreams. I solved his puzzles, mended his machines, and together, we made history. I designed the alternating current, AC, system that would light up the world. But when it came time to collect, he laughed. Tesla, he said, you do not understand American humor. American humor, indeed. What a poor joke it was, at my expense. The man who took credit for my ideas, who branded me as nothing more than a servant, all while profiting from my vision. And when the war of currents unfolded, when the world was divided over DC versus AC, Edison did everything he could to undermine me. His campaign was ruthless. He even went so far as to publicly electrocute animals in an effort to associate AC with death. But still, I pressed on, believing that my work would stand the test of time. And then there was Morgan, J.P. Morgan, the titan of industry. He dazzled me with his promises of funding, his words of ambition. He was the man who could have turned my grand dreams into a reality, who could have financed the Wardenclyffe Tower, the very vision that would have given the world free energy, wireless communication, and an era of abundance. But when my ideas grew too bold, when I dared to reach beyond mere profit and toward the betterment of all humanity, he turned his back. He withdrew his funding, citing a lack of commercial viability, leaving Wardenclyffe Tower abandoned, its steel skeleton standing as a monument to his short-sighted greed and my naive faith. It was not just a loss of money, it was a loss of a vision that could have changed the world forever. Each failure, each betrayal, stripped me bare. I lived not in opulent estates but in rented rooms, moving from one to the next like a leaf in the wind. The Waldorf Astoria, the St. Regis, the Hotel New Yorker, they became my homes, though they never truly were. In the end, I dwelled in a solitary room in the Hotel New Yorker, surrounded by pigeons, who were my only true companions. In those final years, my once brilliant mind, which had sparked revolutions, now seemed clouded by the loneliness of it all. The world that I had once hoped to light now appeared indifferent to my struggles. And the public? Oh, how they marveled at my work, how they stood in awe of my displays. They cheered when I demonstrated wireless transmission of power, when I showed them the possibilities of a future that could be. But awe does not pay a man's bills. I gave them light, yet walked in darkness. I gave them power, yet lived powerless. Do you understand, dear listener, the cruel paradox of it all? My name is now synonymous with progress, with innovation, yet for much of my life, I could not even afford a simple meal. I do not regret my gifts to the world. No, they were born of love, not of greed. I wish to see humanity rise, to unshackle itself from the chains of scarcity. I wanted to create a world where energy was free, where information could travel through the air, where humanity would be united in peace and prosperity. But in my innocence, or perhaps my arrogance, I neglected the darker truths of men's hearts. They saw my dreams not as a shared inheritance, but as a resource to exploit, to plunder, to discard. Perhaps if I had been more pragmatic, more willing to compromise, my legacy would have been different. Perhaps I could have made a fortune, become rich, and lived comfortably. But I was never interested in wealth, not for its own sake, at least. What I sought was a world transformed by science, a world where electricity could be harnessed for the good of all. In my naivety, I believed that people would understand, that they would see the potential of what I was offering and join me in making that vision a reality. But instead, I found myself abandoned. My name became associated with eccentricity and madness. I was dismissed by many as a mad scientist, a dreamer who couldn't see the practical realities of life. I was forgotten by most, left to wander the streets of New York, penniless and alone. And yet, I did not give up. Even in my darkest days, the spark of invention still burned within me. I continued to work, to think, to dream. I sought new ideas, new inventions, even when the world no longer seemed to care. I spoke of wireless communication, of the possibilities of transmitting power through the air, but few listened. Those who did were more interested in their own profits than in the progress of humanity. In the end, I died alone, in 1943, in a modest room at the Hotel New Yorker. My possessions were few, my bank account nearly empty. But I had given the world something far more valuable than money, my ideas, my inventions, my vision. The alternating current system that powers the world, the induction motor, the principles of wireless communication, all of these were born from my mind. And though I may have died penniless, I have given the world treasures beyond compare. As I reflect on my life, I realize that the true cost of genius is often not paid in wealth or recognition, but in the sacrifices we make. The people we leave behind, the relationships we neglect, the years we spend in isolation, all of these are the price of progress. And though I may never have had the love or the wealth I dreamed of, I take solace in the knowledge that my legacy endures. To you, my audience, I leave this caution: do not measure a man's worth by the coin in his pocket but by the fire in his soul. My poverty is no failure, for my legacy is etched in the stars, in the humming wires of progress, in the very light you now see by. The inventions I created, the power I harnessed, the dreams I dared to dream, they are my true wealth. And when the historians write of me, let them not pity my empty coffers, but honor the wealth of my ideas. For though I may die penniless, my legacy will shine for as long as mankind draws power from the very forces of nature I once mastered. Section 3. I was disgusted by physical contact. Ah, solitude, that cruel companion, always by my side, always whispering its cold truths. People look at me, and they see a man, a genius, a visionary. But what they do not see, the darkness that circles around the bright flame of invention, is the weight of that same fire upon my soul. I have often heard them call me eccentric, peculiar, even mad. Mad, perhaps. But I am not mad in the way they think. I am a prisoner to my own mind, a captive to the very brilliance that allows me to touch the stars. They do not understand. How could they? How could anyone understand the constant, ceaseless hum of thoughts that tear through me, demanding expression, requiring invention? The world spins around me, but I remain outside of it, untouched, untouching. I have never known the tender clasp of a lover's hand, the soft whisper of affection in the night. I was not made for such things. No, I was made for the lightning, the currents, the boundless expanse of thought. My body is but a vessel for my mind, a frail, imperfect thing. It must be kept pure, kept away from the distractions of earthly pleasures. For, you see, I cannot divide myself, no, I cannot allow myself to be deluded by the trivialities of human connection. Yes, I have devoted my life to the pursuit of knowledge, but at what cost? It is true, I have built great things, things that will change the course of mankind's future. My alternating current system that powers homes, my motors that have driven industry forward, my wireless communication system that will one day unite the world. And yet, as I stand before my inventions, those wonders of science and electricity, I feel empty. It is a paradox that I do not fully understand, but it persists. The isolation creeps into my bones, gnaws at my heart. Do you know the terror of sitting alone in a room, surrounded by machines of your own creation, and realizing that there is no one who truly understands you, no one to share the weight of your vision? They do not know the hours I have spent in my mind, wrestling with equations, with ideas that flicker and fade like distant stars. They do not know the agony of creating something beautiful and seeing no one who can see its beauty as you do. They see only the end product, the outcome of my work, but not the pain of its inception. I have given my mind to the world, but my heart. My heart is a locked chamber. I have turned away from love, from companionship, from all that makes us human. I have lived in the sterile solitude of my own world, where only the purity of invention remains untouched by the taint of human emotion. It was not out of malice, nor disdain for others, but simply because I knew that I could not divide myself between the work I loved and the people I should have loved. And yet, there is a loneliness that settles over me like a thick fog. I have no family, no lover, no friend to speak of. I walk the streets of New York, a man surrounded by thousands, yet utterly alone. How strange it is, to be known by so many, yet to know no one. People admire my work, they applaud my accomplishments, but no one sees the man behind the inventions. No one truly knows the torment of my isolation, the depth of my yearning for connection. Perhaps this is the price of greatness. Perhaps to soar so high, to touch the future with your hands, you must let go of the present, of those simple joys that others hold dear. But I wonder, when I am gone, what will be remembered of me? My inventions, my discoveries, yes, they will endure. But what of the man? The man who spent sleepless nights in his laboratory, who counted the hours in circuits and sparks. The man who had dreams, but no one to share them with. What will remain of the human being who gave the world a future but was left with nothing but shadows? I have built the world of tomorrow, but in doing so, I have left behind the very warmth that makes life worth living. I have walked alone, and I have paid the price for it. It is a strange tragedy, perhaps, this life I have chosen. A life of the mind, but not of the heart. A life that has brought about progress and change, but at the cost of human connection. But what choice did I have? Can a man who sees the universe in such dazzling clarity ever be content with the dim glow of mere human relationships? I do not know. Perhaps I shall never know. Perhaps my mind is too vast, too restless, for the simple comforts of companionship. Or perhaps it is simply that the fire that burns within me is too fierce, too consuming, for anything or anyone else to endure. In the end, I suppose I will be remembered for my achievements. The alternating current, the induction motor, the work on wireless transmission of energy, all of these will stand as monuments to my genius. And yet, in the quiet moments, when the world has passed me by and my inventions hum silently in the background, I will always carry with me the weight of that loneliness. For all my accomplishments, the truth remains, I was a man who sought to change the world, but who never truly understood the warmth of human connection. And so, I ask you, my audience, to remember not just the inventions, not just the legacy, but the man who carried the weight of those dreams. The man who, despite all he achieved, could never quite escape the shadows of his own solitude. Section 4. After all the merits, I was publicly mocked. Ah, the bitter taste of ridicule. It lingers on the tongue long after the laughter has died down. It clings to the mind, to the soul, as a stain upon the very fabric of one's being. I, Nikola Tesla, once hailed as the man who would illuminate the world, who would wield the very forces of nature at his command, now find myself cast aside, my name no longer a beacon but a forgotten echo, a shadow in the history of men. I remember the days when they called me a prophet. They hailed my inventions as miracles, spoke of me as a genius who saw beyond the veil of what was possible. How swiftly the tides turn, how quickly the masses forget. Now they mock me. I, who once gave the world the gift of alternating current, who harnessed the very power of lightning itself, am now regarded as a fool, a madman, a dreamer lost in his own delusions. Ah, how cruel the world can be! To give everything, to pour the very essence of your soul into your work, and yet to be discarded, forgotten, as though you were nothing but a passing fancy, a passing fever in the minds of men. The world has moved on, and I, poor soul that I am, have been left behind. They speak of my death ray, that weapon I spoke of in my later years, a device capable of destroying entire armies with a mere flick of the wrist. They laughed. Oh, how they laughed! But did they not see the potential? Could they not feel the power of the imagination that burned in my chest? I could see it all, the future, laid out before me like an endless horizon. Yet, as I reached for it, they turned away. They chose to mock rather than to listen. I have watched as the very men who once stood beside me now look at me with disdain. I, who once walked among the great minds of my time, now find myself in the streets, alone, my ideas dismissed as the ravings of a man whose time has passed. And oh, how the bitterness stings! How it burns, deep inside, knowing that I, who have given so much, who have sacrificed so much, am now considered nothing more than an eccentric relic. But the worst of it, the true weight upon my heart, is not the ridicule. No, it is the silence. The silence of a world that has moved on, that no longer hears my voice, that no longer sees the spark in my eyes. The silence of those who once marveled at my visions, now deafened by their own progress, their own desires. How lonely it is, to be a man forgotten by the very world you sought to change. I did not ask for fame, nor for fortune. I did not desire accolades or recognition. All I sought was to understand the world, to bend the forces of nature to our will, to illuminate the darkest corners of the earth. But the world is fickle, is it not? It builds its idols only to tear them down when they falter, when their grand visions fail to take root in the soil of reality. And yet, I will not weep. No, I will not beg for the approval of those who have abandoned me. My mind is still ablaze with ideas, with visions that no one else can see. I have lived my life for the pursuit of knowledge, for the glory of invention. If I must be a madman in the eyes of the world, then let it be so. For even in this final solitude, I am at peace with my work, with the legacy I leave behind. The world may forget me, yes, but my ideas, my inventions, will live on. They cannot silence that which I have brought to life. And one day, when the world looks back, perhaps they will understand. Perhaps they will see me not as a fool, but as a man who, in his loneliness, dared to dream of a future that others could not yet comprehend. And so I will fade into the shadows, content in the knowledge that my thoughts, my work, will echo long after my name has been forgotten. For the true legacy of a man is not in the applause of the masses, but in the quiet hum of the machines that continue to serve the world long after his voice has gone silent.